on? What's going on? Entertain the Geeky.
So, Entertain the Geeky here, and yet again, we have Mike O'Neill, the short Nord. What's going on? How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you?
Life is good. Life is good. We took a break through the holidays on like making stuff.
Yeah.
I talked to Jason. He's one of the partners here, and I was like, how do you want to do this moving forward? And he's like, man, let's take the holidays, do our family thing, and then we'll get back into it. So like last week, I did a 15-minute video. That was like the first thing I had done since Christmas, and I was like, oh man, I am so out of it right now. I had talked to you a couple of times though, and you were going through hell.
It was, yeah. It's I got my gallbladder out. That's fun surgery.
What the fuck does a gallbladder even do?
It does nothing but cause you pain. No, it regulates all of the acid into your stomach so that you can break things down. And I had a bunch of gallstones, which block that. And then it's like, hey, we're still producing acid, but the pathway to release that is blocked. So this is just going to expand a lot and cause a lot of pain. Yeah. So I got that removed. It was actually a pretty standard procedure, laparoscopic. It's great, in and out one day. But just a little bit of a recovery time. And then I got COVID right after that. So I've just been in my house for the past month and a half.
Was that your first time getting COVID?
Yes.
It was?
It was. I was like, I went this long, and it took me I still blame my gallbladder because it just ruined my immune system.
You fucker!
Yeah. Still killing me. So, no, but it was fun. It forced me to take a break, like you were saying, for the holidays, kind of focus on what's important. And, kind of a blessing in disguise, really.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So I honestly, this past week, I've seen you post so much shit.
Yeah.
And I see that you're really, really grinding. And most of what you're doing is D&D-esque content.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, D&D's been a lot in the news lately and stuff, a lot of third-party stuff. I won't go into that, but it's been a real challenge trying to an exciting challenge trying to figure out, where do you stand on a lot of issues with that? And then also just cranking out a bunch of new stuff. I had a wave. I was, like I said, in my house for a month and a half, so I had the time to sit down, write stuff, focus on some really cool new content that I've been planning, and it's been fun.
That's super rad.
Yeah.
So today we're going to do Tales from the Table then.
Yes.
And we will talk about some of the most epic things that have happened in your D&D adventures.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
All right.
And I'll share a little bit too.
I like this. I like this. So
you start. Do you have a single most ridiculous thing that's happened in one of your D&D campaigns?
That's there's been a few that really tie for that top spot. There's no one moment. Recently, I think the funniest thing for me from a DM perspective was we took a D&D trip, me and a bunch of guys from high school, and we just played D&D. That's all we did. We rented this cabin in the middle of nowhere and played D&D all weekend. And so it's not recorded. I wish it was. But essentially, we had our ranger, and it was this long, huge battle. We're playing the Tyranny of Dragons module, which is really, really fun. They're in the second half of it. We've been playing for 4 years. And he finds his mom's getting tortured by this demon, and they're about to fight this dragon. It's this huge pinnacle. And he's fighting this demon that has this cursed sword, which is for those of you that know Drizzt lore at all in D&D lore, it's Karn's Claw, which is a very demonic sentient sword. I told him several times. I said it is this magical glowing serrated sword. It's glowing red. And when he finally this big battle's commencing. There's a dragon. There's a demon. There's this dragon rider guy. He kills the demon, and it turns to ash, and he sees the ash float into the sword. And then the sword just stands on its point.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm going to grab that.
Yeah,
That's for me.
Exactly. So he goes to grab it, and someone's like, wait, I'm going to cast Identify in so many words. This is all happening very fast. And he's
like, fuck it.
Yeah, one of the other players, she turns, and she just goes, I'm going to cast Identify. And as she turns back, he just has it in his hand. And I said, okay, make an intelligence saving throw. And he goes, intelligence? I go, uh-huh. He goes, we don't make those very often. I go, nah. You don't. Good pickup. And he failed the save. It was a very high DC. And he took 47 points of
oh my God.
psychic damage. And he had already been unconscious.
What
3
level
times.
are they?
They're level 11 during this fight.
So that fucked him up real
Real
good.
bad, yeah.
Probably half health.
At least,
Yeah.
yeah. And so he gets knocked down for the 4th time in this whole fight. He keeps getting like knocked down, back up, knocked down, back up, and our healers are exhausted. And so he gets. I go. You start to see your fingertips disintegrate. Because fun fact about this sword: when you get killed or knocked unconscious, your soul gets trapped into the sword. You don't get saving throws. You don't get anything.
So he starts going into the sword.
His hand, starting with his hand, and then our healer rolled a nat 20.
Jesus.
For I saw him do it. I was like, you gotta be kidding. He rolled a nat 20 to save him and just stabilize him. Not even, he goes, I don't even care if he's healed. I just want him to stop disappearing. I go, okay, all right.
I can roll with that.
Yeah, I was like,
that's
I love
totally
it.
fair.
With a nat 20, I'll say he's not healed. He's just not dying anymore. And he lost 3 of his fingers. He lost his 2-pointer, his pointer, his middle, and his pinky. So he just has this. And he goes, oh man, good thing I didn't die. I go, yeah, good thing you're not a ranger. He's a ranger. He's and he has like an enchanted bow. That's like his whole thing.
That's hysterical.
And so he's like, can I use mage hand to do that? I go, yeah, but you're gonna have to use the action to do it before every fight. Because it's an action. Like we had like, and that's where it ended, was like he started disappearing, he got saved, and that's where we ended it. And they're all just like, it was the first time we had played together in the same room in 2 years since the pandemic. And they're all just like, I had to like tell them to stop grabbing the table because they're all like
Thanos snap happens, he starts disappearing, and everybody's like, oh no.
Oh, it was so intense. And like it was like his mom was getting tortured by this demon, so he wanted to, it was just like this big culmination moment, and that was probably one of the most epic things
that is freaking epic.
Yeah.
So in my D&D group, we started our own like world.
Yeah.
And we've been playing in that, and I was the DM for the first basically campaign of it, and then I turned it over, and we're trying to do this in like 6-month increments. So mine concluded, new DM takes over, and he's trying to give every player, you're fine, set it down. He's trying to give every player their spot in the limelight, you know?
Yeah.
So one of the characters is a blood hunter.
Nice. I love that class, by the way. It's underutilized.
It's super cool and not necessarily canon, but we're like half of our shit is kind of homebrewy, so it works out. So we go hunting this super evil vampire, and early on in the quest line, we decide we're like, hey, we're gonna get this vampire to get sucked into a black hole. That's what we're going to do. So if you take 2 bags of holding and you put one inside of the other, interdimensional spaces within another create a black hole.
Yep.
So we're trying to figure out how to viably do this without maybe killing us. And my buddy gets a message from a friend of his. He's like, hey, do you know of a way to do this? And the guy's like, yeah, there's a way. Sends him the schematics on something for engineering. It just so happens one of the party members is an engineer.
Fantastic.
And it's an arrow where you use a portable hole and a bag of holding.
Nice.
Once it hits, portable hole goes inside of the bag of holding. It creates a 15-foot black hole, sucking everything in that area into it. So we've been sitting on this for months. And it was funny because the DM did not know we were making it. This is where it was fucked up on our part. Because we weren't necessarily transparent about what we were doing, but we were gathering components for it through a majority of the campaign.
That's incredible.
So he sent us to this witch to have her make us portable holes. We almost died going to get them. And then he's like, wonder what you guys are going to use those for. And we were like, They never came up again, ever.
That's incredible.
Months go by. We get to the big bad fight.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, we're going to shoot the ground right in front of Valkan, the super vampire. And he's like, that seems stupid. We put oil of sharpness on this arrow, so it gets +3 to hit. Mm-hmm. Our warlock was actually the one shooting it. He has like a natural +8 to hit. So it was like, there's no way he's not making this.
Right.
And he was second in the turn order. So
Perfect.
like somebody goes up, nukes this guy's flying mount.
Yeah.
Because he has a bat that he'll fly around on, giant bat.
That's awesome. That's a cool, is it like familiar type situation?
It kind of, yeah.
Okay, that's
so he
pretty cool.
He has this giant bat that he rides on, and hey, that's rude. And Christopher, my son, is a samurai in it. That's the class that he played.
That's cool.
So it's a fighting class. He goes up, fucking nukes this thing real fast. Bam, bam, bam. And the DM's like, what the fuck, man? This is how this fight's going to go. No, it went way faster than that. So the big bad, we're fighting this vampire at night because we tried to lure him out, knowing what we had in our pocket.
Yeah.
It ended up, the DM's like, fuck it, fine. I'm sick of this shit. You guys cheated this fight. Blew up, nerd rage, man.
Wow.
And the funniest part was I had a buddy there, and because he's like, hey, your wife is making red beans and rice tonight. I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to come over and eat and just hang out with you guys. Cool. So he's watching this, and he's like, what the fuck is happening right now?
So you have an audience for this whole
Oh, my
spectacle.
God. And I would have paid. I wish I would have recorded it because I'm like, man, if you saw that in a movie or something, you would laugh your ass off because of how ridiculous it is. But when you're involved in it, it's like, oh, no, he's upset. Everybody's mad at each other. Now, it was fucking incredible.
That's regular D&D party stuff, right? Like that whole interaction is great. But the fact that you planned it out so early, I commend you for that. Most D&D parties don't do that much planning.
We're shitty.
It
was shitty.
In the best way, though. It's so
See,
good.
I thought it was shaking things up well, and I thought it would be a funny way. And that's not the overall big bad of the campaign.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're not spending it on that. And he could say the other ones fail because they're untested items.
Yeah.
So he could say, hey, roll for whatever. Okay, yeah, it actually failed because you're idiots and you never tested them.
Yeah.
And that would have been totally fair. Or he could have been like, it didn't fucking work, dummies. Instead, he blew up. It was so funny.
Yeah, that's. I think spending your time trying to infuriate your DM is one of the best things. One of my favorite things to do. And I DM a lot, and they do it to me constantly. So it's kind of a give and take. But I commend you on that. I think that's great. It's a bit shitty the way that it played out of like we're saving this for a big fight. And you're like, as a DM, you have all this planning done.
Oh, and he did.
And I would have been furious for about 10 seconds and be like, that's actually genius, though. Like, I got to give it to you.
Well, here's what's so funny. So in our world, we have a parallel universe set up that we call the Void.
Like it.
It's the Upside Down. And so the Void exists, and basically what we've established is anytime something is sucked into something interdimensional, it will travel between these two areas. So we have the elemental plane and the ethereal plane, and those are the two that we play on.
Yeah.
So Valkan is separated from his tomb, which should mean death for a vampire, but he had multiple resting places. And he was also trying to unlock a portal to the Void. So it's really interesting. I'm like, he doesn't even have to be dead, dude. He could be in like stasis right now if you're clever as a DM.
Yeah.
And we could have to deal with this way later, and it could be way bad.
Yeah, it's that's the best part about it is you can always find a way through some sort of magic. There's always an escape.
There's a loophole.
Yeah, there's a loophole somewhere. Like, oh, magic. Like you were saying, like, oh, he could have like a resting place on that other side already prepared. Like he made him not set up himself somehow.
Or he doesn't need it because he's not in the same dimension.
Yeah.
So does it affect him the same? Yeah,
something.
exactly.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, every day you have to do this. Well, it's like, well, it's perpetual night over there, so there's not really a day. Like, how do you interpret day?
Right.
Is it an time span? Is it a light cycle?
Exactly.
You can go a lot of ways with that.
And that's what I thought, but man, no, he went full blown pissed off.
Yeah, I get. And when you see Red like that, I get it.
We still haven't talked. This was
that's pretty
Thursday.
rough.
It'll be 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's really rough.
So, okay, do you have a most epic battle?
Oh man, there's been a lot of those. I'm thinking from all like a DM perspective because I spent so much time setting those battles up. There have been a few where we fight like I love finding monsters that don't have a stat block on like an official capacity.
Right.
So I modify them that way because there's a lot of other DMs in the group and they just like inherently know
Stats.
general stats or this thing's. Like, there's a creature called a shambling mound, right?
Yep.
Big vegetable, plant creature. They hit it with lightning. Well, somehow, with this one creature, lightning heals it. And you're like, who would... But if you're thinking Pokemon rules, that makes no sense. And that's typically how most things go is like, oh, well, plant, it's lightning, fire, that makes sense, kill it. And no, it heals it. So that was a fun one that I think that was a really, really... Those kind of monsters always interest me. But I think to answer your question, though, a big battle, There was a really cool battle we had a long time ago on airships, and that was really cool because a lot of times you don't really get to utilize permanent things like ballista or like the stationary objects, right? So that was really cool on an airship to use. Like, hey, you can use your weapons and fire them from a distance, like arrows, spells, or you can take a chance in this ballista that could do a ton of damage, or you waste your turn.
Right.
And those kind of moments, I think, really make a battle exciting because it's like, this is new, and also this is, like, it all comes down to the dice. Like, and it's, like, my creatures, or my character's never fired a ballista before. It's like, but he's proficient with, X amount of weapons, like, flat roll. Go for it.
Have you made your parties encounter anything that was completely insurmountable, like not winnable?
I have. I did that one time. I don't like to do that too often, but I have done it once for story purposes, and it was a mistake I had to correct canon-wise.
Okay.
It was actually the transition between the Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, which is the Tyranny of Dragons modules that make that up. And as they transitioned, they fought this white dragon, and they got the white dragon mask, which is needed to bring back Tiamat at the end of everything, right? Well, during the whole campaign, you're only supposed to show them it and then kind of drag it away, and then they meet there, right? Like, you're not supposed to give it to them. Well, I didn't read that far ahead.
Oh no!
And I gave them the white dragon mask, and they were like, "Oh, it's got these properties," and I was like, "Oh, there's a stat block for it. They can have it, and I'll get it back somehow." And I was like, "Oh no, I have to get that back immediately." So I set up this huge encounter. There was a sky castle, these cloud giants. They fought this dragon at the bottom of this iceberg sky floating castle for these cloud giants, and there's a white dragon that lives in it. They fought it. They crashed the sky castle, and that was where we picked up in this giant ravine in the mountains. And all of a sudden, all of these evil white wizards just started popping up.
Oh no!
And then there's also yetis, and I just threw everything possible from an elemental standpoint, a magic standpoint, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And they're just I was like, "Uh." And I had to pick on the hardest member to kill, which was our monk, and he's a monk barbarian, so he's impossible to kill. And so I was like, "Okay, insect swarm. I'm just gonna keep you stable, right there." And I knocked him down, took the mask. I had to make the DC super high. It was so tough. And at the end of it, he's just staring at me like, "You messed up, didn't you?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Seemed pretty hard for level 7, huh? You needed that mask, didn't you?" He totally called me out on my stuff. I was like,
No, it was all part of the master plan.
Yeah, man. I had to teach you guys sometimes you fail. It was pretty rough. It was a really cool battle. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun making it. They had a lot of fun fighting in it, and they didn't die. but it was a challenge to not make it look like it was going to be a TPK, but also
completely ridiculous.
Completely ridiculous. Yeah.
So we had one where current campaign, it was on this vampire quest line. We go to, it's like an Australia, if you will.
Oh, interesting.
So small continent.
Where the drow live.
Not here.
Okay.
Not here.
Okay.
So small place. It's there was a tower that we had to visit to. We were trying to rid the world of this vampire.
Yeah.
So we go here, and while we're at the vampire's tower, shit starts to get weird in town. We get to town, and it's being completely overrun. This is right on the coast, right where our ship is. It's a port town. Mm-hmm. They're being overrun by vampires.
Okay.
And we start okay, we can fight our way through this. And we start to, we're in an inn basically trying to get to our ship, and more are coming, and more are coming, and more are coming. And we're level 8. These are all CR 10s and 9s, I think.
Okay, yeah.
So it's doable, but if we're fighting 10 of them, it's impossible.
Yeah.
So we start making our way to the ship, and thank God I picked daylight as soon as I found out we were in a vampire thing. So I'm basically picking up stones and rolling them to create a path for us, and we're just dealing with vampires that are attacking us from the outskirts until we get to our boat. We get on the boat, and we start heading out, and we're literally watching this town burn. And we're like, oh, shit, that sucks. Fast forward a few weeks, we find out that there's this army of these like lizard people that are trying to take over the main port city on the continent that we started everything on.
Mm-hmm.
They are sending, like, we're basically in their little township, and we're gathering intelligence, and we find out, oh, they're about to start marching on Coralel, which is our main port city.
Wow.
This is really bad.
Yeah.
We had fought something called a hungering maw. Now, every time you hit it and you do 25 or more damage, it splinters the maw. Okay? It creates another one right in its place. This was another thing that we once had to run from, because as a level 7, it's impossible. That's how we almost died getting our portable holes.
Oh,
so
okay.
This witch had these hungering maws guarding her, basically. So we start just fucking going ham on these things. And there's like 9 of them all of a sudden, and we're being overrun. So I cast rope trick. We climb up into the rope, into the hole, and they actually went away, and we were like, whew, thank God.
Yeah.
So we send the ground forces through this forest where we know the hungering maws are, and we make contact with the witch, and we're like, hey, these guys are coming. I know you're not a bad person, so can you just make sure that they run into the maws here? We wipe out their ground troops. But then we find out that they're flying in on drakes and stuff, and we're like, this town is completely ill-prepared to deal with the threat and shit like that. So we're like, all right, we're going to get on our ship and go, because we've dealt with this before. You guys need to flee and go to Palinor, which is the main kingdom here.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you sure you don't want to help us out? And we're like, no, fuck this, man. We've seen this happen before.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, vampires, it was scary. Just get out of here.
Yeah.
We get in our boat and we start going. The DM was pissed that time, too. He's like, you guys aren't going to fucking try to save him? And we were like, no, fuck that, man. We're getting out of here. We've seen this before. And he's like, dude, you guys can't keep doing this. And we're like, this is exactly what we're doing.
Look, we warned him. We did, like, we're not risking our neck for it.
You show us impossible 2 times, like these hungering maws and these fucking vampires, and we think this is time number 3. So we're like, nah, man, we're just not even going to try it.
Yeah.
Fuck it. We're gone. No. Awful. And he was pissed that time, too. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. I totally get that. And that's such a cool mechanic, though, to, like, introduce
forced retreat.
It's a lot of times, because it depends on what kind of setting you're playing in, for sure, but you start coming up against like near impossible odds, which is kind of the fun part, right? The fun part of D&D is when you fail. Like, that's where the real fun, interesting aspects
it is the adversity.
Yes. And to that point, there's that tipping point, which I think you guys reached, of like, look, we've had too many so close calls. It's like, look, we're heroes, but we're not martyrs. Like, that's
100%. Yeah.
So you have to put a little bit of reasoning into it.
You do. Our DM, but I think our DM's biggest problem is he's trying to tell this Tolkien-esque story, and it goes this certain way for him. The variable that he's not contending with there is the fact that the party is not what he thinks it is. So, like, when we've been shoehorned, everybody's been pissed.
Yeah, you can't railroad.
Yeah, and we're like, don't you fucking push us in a direction. Let us figure it out.
Right.
And he's like, okay. So he's been doing much better about that. But then we had this fucking arrow thing planned like assholes.
Yeah. I think that's such a great thing. And I've talked about this at length with so many random DMs and players. It's like, you're running a homebrew game, which is very it's difficult to create a world like that and kind of stay on track and keep it on the track for the most part. It's just difficult. I have training wheels still where I take module. I don't have the time to make a homebrew world to the point where I would be proud of it. So I use modules and I modify the hell out of them.
Okay.
Like Tyranny of Dragons, I'm like, hey, this is the module, and it's a loose structure. There's an end goal. There's these like main characters that are there.
Big plot points that you have to touch on.
Yeah, like there's markers, and I think the best advice I ever got was, if a party goes one way and your objective is over here, just move it. Just move it over here.
Right.
Like, that town probably had something important to the story. It's like, okay, well, now it's going to be in this town. Like, and kind of change it. Like, having that adaptability, I learned, after a lot of sessions, but it was the best advice I ever got of just, hey, you can give them the fork in the road, and they're going to make a decision. You got to be ready for either one. Like,
and part of being ready for either one is just bullshitting it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, that's where I thought you were going all along, dummies.
Yeah. Oh, you've fallen into my definitely planned trap. It was me, Dio. So yeah, it's really, really interesting to kind of plan that out, and you never know what someone's gonna do. Or I know a lot of early DMs, myself in this example. You give them way too powerful weapons way too
Oh,
early.
absolutely.
Yeah. And I like that ranger I was talking about with the bow. I gave him an oath bow at level 5. That's a level 10 character kind of bow, 10 to 14.
I was saying you can carry that for a long time, and it's later levels.
Yeah, oof, it's wild. And so I was like, all right, how would you do with no fingers? And so I had that plan. I was like, I know he's going to be the idiot that picked it up, and I know he's not going to make it because he's a big dumb boy. Intelligence saving throw. I was like, that was one of those moments where I was like intentionally going after him, and it was this whole backstory kind of arc. And I that's what I like doing is I fold in what's your backstory? Do you want to focus on your backstory in the campaign at any point? And he's like, yeah, I have this. I'm from the Misty Forest. I'm like, there's a main plot point in that area. And so I just folded in his backstory of like a missing daughter, his mom, and a few other things. I'm like, I'm just going to make that just embedded in there. Right. Like that whole scene wouldn't have happened without his backstory and input. Like
that's interesting.
The demon's not part of it. His mom's not part of it. Like that's all stuff I just added into the environment. That's like, now you care because it's part of your story.
So I think you could totally do a homebrew world.
Yeah. Oh, I think I could. I don't have the time to where I would tweak too much. I'm like, it has to be this. I feel
That's
too much.
so funny. So I like with ours, I had originally it was supposed to be like a 3-month ordeal, and it was so my kids could play and my brother could play with us.
Yeah.
And that's all it was supposed to be. And it was basically you go in, save the princess, get the gold, done.
Yeah.
And I was like, if you guys want to keep playing, let me know. So they go into this kingdom. They find out that they're passing through a major kingdom. And as they're there, there's a meeting in the town square. And they specifically are pointed out by this like wizard who's the king's right hand.
Okay.
And he sends them out on this quest to save the princess who was taken. He gives them gear and stuff like that so that they can make this travel to a place called Light's End, which is basically Alaska.
Yeah.
And they start going to Alaska, and they're doing their thing there. And they run into encampment where there was once a large troop, if you will, a large military force.
Okay.
And nothing's there that's alive. It's been dead for like 1,000 years or something like that. They start gathering clues while they're there, and they find out that Oleron, this wizard that sent them on this quest, was actually there for this battle, and he made sure that these troops were frozen out, and it was this thing that he was doing so that he could try to seize power. The thing that he missed was that this decent guy would show up and basically accept the mantle of king. So he became the right hand to that king, so he could kind of manipulate things from the sidelines. And they learn this through through pieces of a journal that they're finding while they're here.
Okay.
And then they have some communion with like spirits and stuff like that, and they're like, oh shit. Well, they find out that there's a series of pathways where they have to, it's like go back into the mountains. Once you reach here, you're just going to take this turn, loopy scoopy doopy doopy. And it takes them to a series of rooms, one of which represents every one of the 4 elements or whatever, so they have to fight an elemental in each room.
I don't want to interrupt you. I love that mechanic. I love that so much.
Really?
I love the 4 elements. I just think that's a cool. I absolutely love that.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
Thank you. No. So this ends up taking them beneath the castle where there's a series of traps. Nobody really uses it, so it's like Oleron's playground.
Gotcha.
So they have to start dealing with all this shit. Well, Oleron finds out that they're there, and he is a summoner, is what you end up learning. So he's summoning all these goblins and stuff to come and fight the party, and they start whooping his ass, and they're like, oh, dude, we have to get to the king. Well, as they're trying to navigate through this trap-infested dungeon, they find the princess, and they're like, all right, she's been shrunk down and all this stuff, so they're like, we're just going to toss you in our bag of holding. And
oh, no.
I'd let it slide.
Yeah.
And get to the king. So they get to the king, and they're like, dude, fucking Oleron's been behind this. And he's like, no way, that's fucked up.
I hope that's the exact delivery of that line. Oh, no.
That's real bad.
I invited him to my barbecue.
Yeah.
Dang it.
I thought he was my buddy. We were such good guys.
Oh, man.
So they fight him, they kill him, and one of them is like, as they're killing him, basically what you find out is he's trying to do this whole thing to recreate the world in some image, some like crazy thing dealing with space and time and interdimensional magic.
Yeah.
Well, as he's doing this, they stop him. A giant explosion happens, killing one of the party members, and then they meet people that ended up coming into the campaign later during a celebration dinner because they wanted to keep going.
Yeah.
Well, they found out that this was to bring a former demigod back into the world, is what Alaron was actually doing, not trying to recreate something in his own image, but trying to bring this old world back together, if you will. And yeah, so much fun. Sorry.
Yeah, no, don't apologize.
Tangent there.
That's incredibly, like, you can start off with something small and then you can expand upon it.
Oh yeah, big time. It's so easy.
That.
But I started off with just a kingdom and like a concept, and like then it was bullet points from there.
Yeah.
And my whole thing going into the campaign is I wanted to make a super bow. I was like, I want to make the ethereal bow, celestial bow or something like that. And it's a bow that never drops off. That was it.
Yeah.
Completely stupid.
Yeah. It's no bullet drop.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's all it was. And
it's honestly, it's so much more powerful than it just sounds on the surface. Yeah. It's
way OP.
It's so good.
You could shoot the moon with it.
Yeah. Just doesn't stop. The velocity never stops.
It's incredible. Well, they ended up getting that and these magical arrows, and they were made from some like crazy space metal. It was the eye of a god. It was thrown around the planet as a comet, landed.
That's cool.
Or a meteor, I'm sorry. Meteor, it lands, so they get pieces of it, turn it into arrowheads, and when you hit something with it, it tears a hole in the fabric of reality. So they were shooting people, and they were being sucked into their own butthole, is what we called it.
Oh, my God.
And
like void arrows.
They were void arrows.
That's wild.
And the ranger that had it, as I bring the evil god back into the world, and I'm really excited about it, and I've used mind control on the party and all kinds of cool shit at this point. Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, I need you to turn on the party now. Do it, because I knew I was getting ready to turn over as a DM.
Mm-hmm. I'm
like, so you guys can kill an ethereal. That's fine. I want you to kill the party. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, just team up with the bad guy. You get to be the king. So I'm tempting him with all this power, and he didn't take it. I was so pissed because I'm like, man, if you turn on the party, the next DM that picks up is going to make it his sole objective to seize the throne.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck that, man. You could have been the best bad guy ever with your butthole arrows.
you're the temptress DM.
Oh, dude, I totally was there.
Like, oh, look what you can get.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted it so bad. I'm like, just go in and fuck them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've not been in the party that long.
Yeah, you don't even like them. When's the last good thing they did for you? They got in this whole mess.
Have you tried to create division in the party?
Not to that degree. Not so bluntly, but I will slowly like skew someone's perception of other people, like over time. Like I will purposely put things in that I know their core character values divulge on, and they have to make a choice. So I drive character-driven facts between them. So it's like one could be like one's a paladin and one's like a rogue. That typical like clear dissonance between the two. I will make it so where it's like not the choice is either like kill this person and cause pandemonium, or let it slide and sneak them out and let them survive. And it's not they're not a good person, but they uphold stability. So like it's like a king, you find out it's corrupt. The paladin's like, you gotta die, and they're like, if you kill this king,
the whole kingdom goes into chaos.
Yeah, right. And then it's like, if you keep him alive, there is going to be peace. He's just a shithead, and you're like, in the paladin, like if they have those, like I think his what was it? It was like Oath of the Crown or something like that. And it was to that king, and he found out that he was like didn't stand for any of the things that he stood for.
So then he's an Oathbreaker paladin after that. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's like one of those driven story things where it's like, and the rogue and the paladin always had that like, oh, we do things my way. Both very headstrong players.
Yeah.
I like driving those things into like, it's not so much like turning and fighting against each other, which I haven't really thought about doing, which is a fun thing to do.
So if you ever use mind control.
Yeah.
Like, so I introduced it, and I did not let the party know where it was coming from. So they fought two beholders. And as they're fighting the beholders, there are these cultists. Well, the cultists were actually using mind control on the party members. and they did not know that all they had to do was break focus on this. So I almost get a TPK by using the party members on each other. They kill the beholders, and they're like, what the fuck, dude? Half the guys are still under mind control, and they're kicking our asses.
Yeah.
And finally, they go to these cultists, and they're like, oh, fuck. And I think it was the ranger had an attack that made a bunch of animals show up.
Okay, yeah.
So he cast this, and all these cultists are like, what the fuck? It breaks mind control, and they're able to clean up. But it was almost TPK, made for a really good game.
Yeah. Yeah, I will. I keep looking. There's a spell. I think it's Crown of Madness.
Crown of Madness. So 2 of our party members have it right now.
Yeah, it's such a fun thing. That and like I like illusion magic, especially when like there's a bunch of like low intelligence, because intelligence is a dumb stat unless you're a wizard or an artificer.
Right.
And so and like we have some of that in the party, but it's like, okay, if they're not there, I'm gonna use these spells. Like I literally build encounters for all of their weaknesses, and
that's fantastic.
I'm like, okay, there's the typical, like, I put healers in the like enemies, right? Like so that they heal. That's the most annoying thing when you come across like oh, we almost killed the enemy. It's like they healed, and they're like, what? And I'm like, would you heal?
There's clerics here.
There's evil clerics, like, and they're like, oh damn it, we didn't see them or something like that. And it's so funny to like just like, I'm like, what is really going to grind their gears and frustrate them? Like, I literally have those thoughts of like, all right, they're going to be so mad.
Let's fuck up their day just a little.
Let's make them so infuriated. But it's kind of like one of those things where when it's something's, I think of like Elden Ring or like a really difficult game that like you have to try like a million times to defeat a certain boss. Like, you are frustrated, but once you beat it, it's so much more satisfying.
Right.
That's the kind of like, that's the feeling I'm going for.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I would, I never really did that to my party.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would do assholey things to them that I knew they wouldn't figure out, but it wasn't with the mindset of being frustrating. You know what I mean?
Cereal box puzzles.
Yeah.
For like 5-year-olds that are
exactly.
like, what?
Yeah. So that was one of the first things I wanted to do, a session where there was no combat. And it was while they were communing with all these ghosts and trying to put this journal together and all this shit, I had them collecting pieces of a shattered shield.
Okay.
And basically the shield, they'd have to put it together. It was a puzzle. But there was I guess I should start at the beginning. So they get all the pieces of the shield, and they take it and they have to assemble it. They find out that the place where they have to assemble it is basically you have to jump down this, what looks like a bottomless pit. And after so many seconds, they'd show up back at the top again. It's some weird loop magic. So they jump into it, and basically they have to very quickly assemble this puzzle. So I used an egg timer so that they'd have to put it together, or else they'd be back at the top of the loop and the puzzle would be scrambled again.
That's funny.
And it worked really, really well. So I made the puzzle in the shape of a shield and cut all the pieces so they were hyper similar, and it was very difficult. And finally they got it, and they solved this great mystery. And then they're like, fuck, we didn't even fight anything today. And I'm like, fuck you guys, man. That was cool as shit.
Yeah, an encounter doesn't have to be a fight. An encounter can be a puzzle. It can be a multitude of things. There was actually a really good resource that I found. I think it was OpenRPG, and I found or Drive-Thru RPG, and it's called the Unicorn Incident, where they basically have to, like, there's a dying unicorn. They have to save it by getting this magical water that's on this little tiny island, and they get there, and there's 3 jugs, and it's a classic puzzle of the 3 jugs can hold like 1 liter, 3, and 6 or something. And essentially, like, you have to get the perfect amount in order for this seal to open up and get the 1 magical vial.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, you have to, it's basically like those block things for little kids.
Yeah.
So you have to pour water here and then into this one. So it's like, I have 3 in here, put it into the 5. So there's 3 in the 5, then fill the 3 again. And like, it's really funny to like see them do that. And all of them, it was like clockwork. I presented this to them, and they all just started writing on their notepad. All of them individually writing. I'm like, you can work together. And then they're like, and they all looked up. They're like, how is that? And I was waiting for them to look up, and I just turned a dot. Like, I have this like hourglass. I just turned it, and they went, ah! It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Because like, I have 5 people at this table, like, just intently thinking. I'm like, oh, hey. And they're like, Just all panicking.
You put that away.
It was classic. I've never seen so many people be so infuriated by something so simple.
If you put a timer on something, it turns it into something impossible very quickly.
Oh yeah,
and it's amazing.
Yeah, I whenever I get that done to me, I know I get upset because I get so much pressure. Like you could ask me the simplest question, like it's like being on a game show. People have dumb answers on game shows because they're so nervous they can't think, and I resonate with that so much.
Well, yeah, it shifts how you're thinking because now I'm worried about time and not the problem that I'm solving.
Correct. Yeah,
and it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's so much fun though.
So, have you introduced any of your own mechanics to the game or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a really fun mechanic that I love. It's kind of like a homebrew item so much. It's more of like teleportation magic. The Rogue Soul Knife can do this. I think there's another one where it's the Echo Knight Fighter, which is really cool. They can like create an echo of themselves within 30 feet, and then you can use a bonus action to swap places.
Oh, that's rad.
It's really cool, and that's a standard thing, but what I introduce is like items that can take that one step further of like blink arrows. Like you shoot and I hit you, we trade places.
Oh, wow.
Or something to that effect. So I think that mechanic of like teleportation, and it's kind of like a mix between Battlemaster Fighter, Echo Knight Fighter, and a Soul Knife Rogue, where it's just battlefield mechanics of like positioning, and you combine that with a spell like Animate Objects. Now you have action economy of I don't need one big thing to kill you. I need 12 small things to make sure that you wait in the order for 12 hits. Like it's that next like, and if you throw one wizard out there that can do all those things against a whole party, now we don't know what they're like. What do we hit first? And it keeps moving.
Right.
So you can have like a monk that can dash super far, but if I can teleport 10 feet further, then you can dash.
And you're still falling short, buddy.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like you're keeping a goal out of reach, and it's just action economy and where you're in positioning.
Have you used them as a like this teleportation thing? Have you used it as a puzzle for your party yet?
Yes. There's a module that it's the Tomb of Daedarius. Not that Tomb of Daedarius. It's on Chult. I can't remember. It's one of the hardest campaigns. What is that? I'm blanking here. It's not like Dungeon of the Mad Mage, but I forget. Anyway, there's this room, and everything's gears, and every time that they open a door, all of the rooms rotate.
Okay,
and
fantastic.
The doors then now align to a different door.
Ah.
And I had a hard time following it. I had to print out the rooms. I'm like, okay, if this room moves, that means it goes into this room, which now connects to this one, and then this one. And it was really difficult for like, you go through a door and you could teleport into another room, and then they would do something, the rooms would shift, someone would go through that same doorway and end up somewhere else.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I've slowly started like showing them.
Did you split up the party that way then?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
They split it up technically.
Sure.
Yeah. So then they each had their own separate encounters in the different rooms, and this is one of those things where you had to call an audible as a DM, where I made sure that whatever room they ended up in, it was the fight I wanted for them.
Right.
So like I designed an encounter for all of them, split them up, and then they each had their own fight. And I took a little bit from that module, and then a buddy of mine I ran as a character. We had is that classic fight yourself, like that Dark Link battle.
The man in the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. And he made it to where it was 3v3, and we each all looked at each other, we're like, we're fighting ourselves, right? And like we were gonna take the fighter takes the wizard, we weren't trying to make it easy. We're like, we are gonna prove that we are better at rolling dice than these guys. We all just like looked at each other like, yes, we're gonna outroll him.
We know exactly how to do this.
Yeah, I know what he's doing.
Roll gooder.
Yeah, yeah, I could roll gooder than you, idiot. So yeah, it was fun.
I used so after I did the loop mechanic into that cave for the problem solving thing, I introduced it in the dungeon, and basically once they would enter rooms, it would send them back to the previous room that had a loop built into it.
Okay.
So they didn't necessarily hit every loop room, but they did keep getting put back into wild places in the dungeon. Well, at one point, they're in an alchemist lab, basically. they set fire to it. And they ended up going through a loop because there was a loop in that room. So they go through a loop. It puts them back in the burning room. And they started taking fire damage immediately. And it was fucking awesome. And they started to figure out, like, okay, we keep going back to the last loop. But they didn't know it was a loop. They were like, all right, we've been here, so it's going to take us back to where we've been. But they didn't necessarily know where that would be because they had been 3 places.
Right.
By the time they hit another loop.
Yeah, it's like slowly discovering the edges of a puzzle.
Yeah, but it was a system that this wizard would use so that he could quickly navigate to different areas in the dungeon to get to, like, oh, I need to go work in my alchemy lab. All right, bloop, bloop. And then you find out that the final loop is upstairs where the king is.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
So much fun.
Yeah, it sounds like the puzzles that you've run are really similar to the ones that I've ran, and I love that whole mechanic of like having them slowly figure it out. Like,
oh yeah,
it makes for such a good encounter.
It does. It does. Well,
it makes you think.
A lot of the time, it's like, here, let's go punch stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a fucking bummer. Our DM did one with pebbles or coins or something like that. You had to put so many coins in the. And
I was thinking Flintstones. I don't know why. Like we had to fight Pebbles from the Flintstones.
Oh yeah,
that's why my brain.
No, he did a puzzle with coins where there's a bunch of coins on this table, and you basically have to solve some riddle with it.
Yeah.
And I start trying to like do the math in my head, and then he puts fucking coins out on the table, and he's like, "Do this." I'm like, oh, "Okay, cool." Everybody starts writing shit down on paper, and I'm like, I'm just going to do this with these. And he's like, I thought you would be the first one to figure it out. And I was like, I was figuring it out, but I also was like hanging on words that he said, so I was turning it into shit that it wasn't.
Yep.
And it was super frustrating.
Yeah. That's, oh man, I've been there where I was in a one shot, and there was like some door that we had to get through with a magical force field while a rolling spike wall was coming at us. Classic Indiana Jones moment. And I was playing a big dumb barbarian, like a big himbo. And I was like, I'm just going to charge through it. I don't know how to solve this. And he's like, oh, it's so easy. It's like, just look for a lever. Like, it was that level of, like, simple. And I was just like, no.
There's no levers here.
I was so frustrated. I rolled low on my perception investigation, so I just didn't see it. And the other guy didn't, because he was basically pushing the wall back by doing certain things.
Yeah.
Because it was like an animatron, like rolling pin with spikes. And I was like, he's like, yeah, you will like figure a way out. And I'm like, we should have done this the other way around. And because I'm like, I can't see anything.
I can't figure shit out.
So then I just grabbed him and like busted through and did half my damage. Like half my health was gone. So this is not a good way to start this.
I mean, at least you got to bust through it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was rough because I was like, I was so frustrated from me because I'm like, there's nothing here for me to do. And he's like, there was a lever. I go, darn it.
So in our party, we don't have a dedicated healer.
Oh, rough.
It's been fantastic. Oh, no. So we have our artificer, fighter, a blood hunter, a warlock, and myself, a sorcerer.
Okay.
So there's no fucking healer.
Yeah.
And we are basically we try to do everything very strategically when we're in fights so that we don't take unnecessary damage. And it's worked very well for us, but I'm like, man, we're like one bad day away from just getting totally shit on, which is why we made special arrows to kill a vampire, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
made sense to me.
I think that's such a good way to play it too, is like, hey, we might not have a healer, but we're going to think and plan. It makes you think and plan a lot more carefully.
Yeah.
You're not relying on that.
Positioning has been our big thing. And then,
yeah.
So I picked a goblin for my warlock.
Nice.
And they're like, or sorcerer. And they're like, that's kind of a odd combo. I'm like, but I get a bonus hide action every turn.
Yep.
And that's huge. So like I can cast something like, and now I hide.
Yeah. You take something out of the rogues.
Yep. Nothing happens. And it's great. Amazing.
I love that. That's thinking outside of the box of using your turn to the fullest.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we abuse the shit out of it.
Absolutely. That's what the game's made for. I
agree.
Abuse what it is. And then like also speaking of like the rules as written kind of thing, like we homebrew so many things.
Oh yeah.
It's I think like rule of cool too. Like I'm like, if this makes cooler sense for the story, 9 out of 10 times we're rolling with it.
How do you do advantage?
Like flanking or like,
so if something says you get advantage or disadvantage on a roll, how do you do that?
Roll 2 dice, take the lower.
Okay, so we do +3 -3.
Oh, okay. I
And
like that. I like that.
we've liked it much better, and it was something I started doing when I was DMing, and then we rolled with it moving into the next campaign because we were like, you can do this with 2 dice, but we all liked the idea of, well, +3 or -3 can go a long way, so let's see what
Gotcha.
happens there. So that's how
Okay.
we do advantage and disadvantage.
Interesting. I like that. I think I might do a variation of that. That sounds really cool. I like a
It's-
Bane and Bless situation of like a
Right,
a
basically.
D4, make it a little bit.
Oh, yours is a D. So we do it with our D20s. So like if you're making
Yeah.
if you're making a strength check,
Yeah.
but you have disadvantage, and it is a DC 12 and you roll a 13, well, all of a sudden I missed it because I had disadvantage.
Right.
And it's a big ordeal, and we
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna do like the D20, but then take like the Bane or Bless. Like, okay, you rolled a 15.
Okay,
roll
so
a D4, and then whatever that is.
that's your advantage or disadvantage?
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
That'd be like a Bane, because that's how those spells work. Just have like a permanent like subtraction or addition.
Yeah, we
It'd be
do.
interesting to
That's
try.
That's
at least.
cool to do it with a die.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Like, because that way you're like, am I, like, because then you get there, you're like, it's a 15. It's like, oh, if I get a 3 or a 4, I fail.
Yeah,
like,
I fucked this
now
right
it's
up.
now it's like, whoa.
That's fair.
I'd be interested to try. I do like that though. I like the way that you approach that with not just 2 dice rolls. It's or with like 2 D20s. It's, hey, you rolled what you rolled, but
Well, we had a discussion about it too. That was one of
Yeah.
the big things. Like as
I like that.
as a group, we were like, all right, I've been doing it like this because I like it better.
yeah,
But if you guys want to do the roll 2 dice thing, we can. And they're like, nah, man, fuck that. Because you spend later in the game, you spend a lot of time getting additions to your rolls.
yeah.
And do you want to roll 2 dice at that point? Because I might roll 2 4s,
Yeah.
and then I'm extra fucked.
Yeah, I mean it's like having a D12 as your hit die
Yeah,
for
exactly.
a barbarian. You know,
Exactly.
it's like you could get a 1 or you could get 12, but statistically it's better to roll 2 D6s than 1 D12.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally get that.
Exactly. But they have a lot of fun with it. And nobody wanted to change it. And I'm like, okay. And now
That's a really cool mechanic.
I'm like at a point where I'm like, I kind of want to do my own rule set.
Okay.
Like-
in like what capacity are you?
So I don't know if I would take 3.5 or 5e as like the base,
Okay.
but scaling encounters is not viable in D&D 5e. It fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is so player heavy. It's not fun, and
Mhm.
it's hard to make things competitive in higher levels.
It really it's like level 1 you're like kill a rat. Level 20 you're like let's kill God or become him. Like
Then that's what my party ran into when I was
Yeah.
running them through one, because I let them get to level 20. That's all I
Yeah,
wanted for them.
that's really cool.
Then they had to fight a demigod.
Yeah.
And it was like this big ordeal, and, it was cool, but I'm just like, yeah, it can't always be so,
Grandiose.
not necessarily grandiose, but it can't be so in the favor of the party.
Yeah.
So I'm leveling them slower now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like moving forward, I guess is how I should say that. Moving forward, I'll be leveling them slower, and I change armor classes on everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Yep. I think we do that similarly where it's I will always rearrange a stat block to
Armor class and hit points.
yep, always.
I won't adjust their damage. I'm like, their damage is fine.
Yeah.
It can be lethal to the party basically as it sits.
Mhm.
But if they miss the roll by 1 now, whereas they would have barely hit it before, all right, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
So that's how I like to roll with it.
Yeah.
Armor class first, then I'll do hit points.
I think that's the easiest way to do it. I think easiest and most effective. I think.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, it's like hey, it's like you're facing regular or advanced zombie. It's like okay, their AC's 12. It's like okay, well your average AC as a party is 16. It's like
Mhm.
okay, well I'm gonna raise there to 16.
Right.
And now it's like okay, well now you have a chance to miss because
Right.
all of you have like a +7 to hit. It's like
That's what's crazy.
you could
man.
roll a 5. You roll on the lowest 25% of the dice and you still hit. No, not acceptable.
That's how I feel. And that's why I'm like, yeah, I should make my own rule set so that it scales less favorably for the party.
Yeah.
And like we had dragons show up in my campaign. They shit on the dragons.
Yeah. Oh,
Flat out shit on them.
I resonate so hard with that running the module I'm running.
It
It's
sucks.
I had to I was like, okay, these are adult dragons. I was like, you could fight an ancient one. It'd be difficult, but you could do it. So
Mhm.
that's why I introduced that fight I was talking about, that demon, the dragon rider was already there. I was like, I'm going to introduce this demon as an extra element. also ties into his backstory.
Just so
like,
there's moving pieces for them to contend with.
and like I said earlier, the action economy. If there's only 2 enemies, like they can just keep hammering them home before they even get a turn. And there's legendary actions with like those types of creatures and layer actions and stuff. But it's like I like having minor things that nip at them. So like there's kind of been a repetitive thing, which I try to sway away from now. Where I used to have it like big bad, bunch of small guys, or big bad, like a kind of a major player and some small guys.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, well, that's there, but now there's environmental effects. There's going to be just extra elements that you can't ignore. Like, oh, well, he uses his poison breath attack, and it's over. The damage is over, but now you can't see as well. Like, or I'll add something extra, like, oh, your vision is cut in half, so you can't see where that dragon moved to. If he's 60 feet away, you can only see 30 feet out. So now they're like, oh, and I'll just block out the map.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I'm like, you don't know where they're at, or I'll like take. We use Roll20 for digital stuff because we have friends like down in Texas and stuff.
Right.
But so I'm like, I'll just remove the token from the field, or make it visible to like one player. Right. And something like that. He's over here, and it's like maybe.
Over where?
Yeah, like where are you? Like that kind of thing. And I'm like, it's also it depends on your party about like how they role play, and like they're all really into it. But it's adding those extra elements that aren't typically like on a stat block, but they're extra elements you cannot ignore.
100%. Yeah, environmental factors are huge, especially when it comes to movement and stuff.
Oh yeah,
if your party cakewalks movement, fucking take some of that away.
You're an Eric Hakra monk with the movement feat. Or whatever it is, it's like, yeah, you can fly with a dash. You can move like 120 feet flying. And it's like, what the hell? It's a set.
That's crazy. Somebody put a chain on your ankle.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Like someone has an arrow of like grounding. Like, oh, sorry. It looks like you can't fly, idiot.
Have you listened to, do you do audiobooks at all?
Yeah, I used to a lot. Not so much in the past like 6 months. But yeah, I love audiobooks.
Have you done Dungeon Crawler Carl yet?
No, you told me about that last time I was here. I haven't had a chance. It's on my my list.
You need to, because I think it's the last book in the series, there is actually a tether that gets used. So they will. Oh no, that was He Who Fights with Monsters. I'm sorry. So in He Who Fights with Monsters,
also on my list,
there's a tether that's used, and when the tether's broken, an extreme amount of damage is dealt. And it's brilliant for something like a monk like that. And you could easily come up with something to ground him with it, and I think it'd be rad.
Yeah. Oh, I love those out-of-the-box solutions to that.
It's fucking wonderful.
Like outside-the-box solutions. I think it's so interesting to like tackle that. Because it's magic. You can do what you want with it.
Doesn't make sense, yeah.
It doesn't. You can make your own school of magic if you want. It's like...
Oh, yeah.
I get a lot of inspiration from like Magic the Gathering spells and...
Me too.
All that. I'm like, oh, that spell is pretty cool. How can I turn that into a mechanic in my game?
I want counterspell right now.
Yes. I'm going to say this to the camera. If you play the color blue in Magic the Gathering, you're a bitch.
I run Esper.
I hate blue Magic. My roommate plays it all the time, and I'm like, okay, I go the cheap route of like white black, like life gain, life steal, and you're like, oh, this game's going to take 5 hours. Yeah,
Are you running tokens?
I don't really want to run too many tokens, but I like vampires, and I like gain health. Like I'll use angels and vampires in the same deck.
Do you have a Divinity of Pride in your deck?
Oh, I have that card. I don't know if it's in my current run.
That's rad. I love that card. But that's if you're like running a lot of hybrid black white, that I really like it.
Yeah.
So I run Esper, so I have a lot of just gross blue stuff. But I run artifacts, so I have
I do like artifacts.
Really cheaty stuff.
Yeah.
Like in my play group, we had to ban infinite combos.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's pretty fair.
It was just like we were just seeing who could pop off first, and that was really boring.
Yeah.
And if you had a control deck whatsoever, you could basically lock everybody out of their combos and then just wait to get yours. Blah.
Yep.
Not fun.
Yeah.
And then we got rid of indestructible because everybody started abusing that. So once we got past that, everything was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a good cross. It's a good cross thing too. Like I'll sometimes there's an artist I met at a comic convention who he just does artwork over Magic the Gathering cards, which is pretty
Yeah, it makes
cool.
the full art cards and shit.
Yeah. It's really, really neat. Or he'll like make memes out of the cards, and it was really neat. But he did one where it was like a D&D crossover, and it was like I think it was a dragon. I can't remember what it was, or a sphinx maybe. I think it was a blue card. But he basically was like he basically rewrote the cards like stats
Flavor
and
text and everything,
flavor
yeah.
text and he basically made his own card out of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really cool. But he made it to where it was like, like it had new abilities. I was like, I never thought of like modding and making my own magic cards and seeing if my friends would want to play with that before. I thought that was a pretty interesting thing.
So I was going to make them play Magic in my next D&D campaign as like
Gwent.
as a as like a wizard's duel.
That's pretty
And
I love that. All right, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to use this.
well,
for
I was
sure.
like, man, I really want him to have to play Magic.
Yeah.
And because I'm the only, one of the other people in the group has played. He played
Okay.
competitive. If
Oh,
he
wow.
is dueling anybody else, like it'll be hysterical.
Yeah.
But I also want that to be something that is very common
Mhm.
in this world, so that they're having to encounter it often.
Yeah.
So maybe one session, all they're doing is having a giant commander battle.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I think that would be a lot of fun for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a brilliant move, I think.
And they'll have to buy decks.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to play more.
It adds depth to all the NPCs in your world. Like they have hobbies. They're real people.
Right. Well, and my big thing was I was like, okay, I want you to encounter, you're doing this like they do it as a gambling thing as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so like if you go meet up, like, yeah, I'm not necessarily going to kill you, but I'm going to challenge you to a duel, and whoever wins gets 500 gold.
Yeah. I like that.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just,
And taverns and stuff.
it's
yeah.
like it's like a professional sport at that point.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it be?
So
I love that.
that was my
that's
goal with it.
Such a good idea.
there you go. Take it and run with
I
it.
will. I'm already I've used physical cards. I've had like dice. They have a typical trope like dice games and
Mhm.
all that. And I actually took, I think this is probably one of the funniest things I've ever done. I got addicted to Animal Crossing during the pandemic. 'Cause I was like, this
Okay.
is great. It's a feel-good game. I can't die. I'm building stuff. And so there's this dumb game that the characters play. It's like, I'll give you an item if you guess the right card. And it's like high or low. And it's that simple. It's like, here's the first card. It's a 5. Higher or lower? And I'm like,
Oh,
higher.
wow.
And they're like, you get an outfit. And I was like, yay. I was like, this is joy. I was like, I'm going to do this in my campaign. Sure enough, I was like, free drinks at the bar if you can guess higher or lower. And I just had a deck of cards. I was like,
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
I was like, higher or lower. And they're like, oh. And I the first time it happened, I happened to just pull like a 7, which is the most like smack dab in the middle
Right.
card. And they're like, our ace is high or low. And I go,
Let's find out.
yeah, let's find out. They're like, what? No, you have to tell me. They were so mad I didn't tell them that. I told them. I was like, they're high. And then it's like, okay. And they didn't get it. And they were so mad about that. There was so many other things happening. They're just like, I can't believe we didn't get free drinks because that stupid card. Like, it was the fun.
You're upset about not
Yeah.
getting something for free
Yeah.
versus,
Yeah.
okay, I just paid the regular tab.
I took a very fun thing from a very fun kids game and made it the bane of someone adult's existence.
That's fucking amazing. I'm going to use that now.
It's pretty great.
One of the guys, he bought out a bar in our campaign.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
that was the thing that he did. He bought out the bar and he was going to start to franchise it.
Yeah, passive income, baby.
Exactly. And it was a lot.
Yeah.
So he got some obscene amount of gold. He basically made a deal with this ancient dragon.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, if you keep helping these guys, because he wanted to abandon party.
Yeah.
If you keep helping these guys, I'll hook you up. And he's like, fine, 4,000 gold and and that's a shit ton in my world. That's
Oh, yeah.
multi-millions.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I'll fucking do that. So he does, and then he's fucking chasing the dragon around, basically. He's like, oh, where the fuck's my money? Where's my money? And every time he'd meet the dragon out and about, the dragon's like, of course I don't have 4,000 gold on my person. I'll put it in an account for you here. You can go access it when you get back in town.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's the other side of the world. And he's like, that's fine. You'll get it when you get it. So finally he gets it. He immediately buys a bar. Immediately. He
That's
was like,
incredible.
tavern.
That's
And he
awesome.
was generating every week, he was generating hundreds of gold.
That's insane.
It was
So he made it back easily.
fast.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they went to another town that was kind of in ruin, he put one there and started trying to bring people in. And so it was awesome.
Yeah, I have to bring this up. There is the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. The campaign that I'm in on Mondays. I have a show tonight. Legend of Shalgal on Swole Initiative Network. It's a big fun event. We had this thing. We started off in this town. There was a vampire, and we had to basically like it was either like, oh hey, there's a problem. Like the vampires are like killing people and stuff, and we're like, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So
Normal.
we learned that there was like people who've been not fully killed but came back as vampires and didn't want to kill anyone, and there was like a whole like a bakery that was like selling blood vials in like these really expensive baguettes, and it had like 3 blood vials in it, and these people who are just trying to get by are just like buying
consuming blood like
and
this.
then we found out the baker was a murderer, and the vampires weren't actually bad. They were like trying to do it ethically, and it was actually like but then we eventually bought this tavern and started a blood. It was called the Hammered Gnome, which is a great.
That is a wonderful name.
It is a gnome that has a hammer like as like the main like pillar.
Amazing.
And it was awesome. We started this basically blood bank at the tavern where it's like, hey, if you donate a pint of blood, you get to your next drink is free. And so we would get the blood, sell like then the people could get drunk faster because they have less blood.
Right.
So they were like, yeah, take the blood. So we started a blood bank for the vampires that are in the town. And so we're now getting money from the bar, which is selling cheap drinks, but we're selling the blood for so much to all the vampires.
Right. Massive profit.
Yeah. And now we're friends with them, and now they're helping us out.
That's cool. So we actually, because ours is vampire heavy, we got an item that turned water into blood.
Ooh.
And a captain that was helping to kind of ferry us around, he was bit. And instead of, and we got this like ghost ship. So we turned the ship over to him, and we're like, look, man, you can't come on shore, but to make sure you're not going to die here. And we gave him the special flask or whatever. So he uses that, just fills it with water, and that's his blood consumption. And he stays on his ghost boat out in the ocean because we don't want him inland.
That's cool.
It's
that's a really cool. Yeah, that's I love when you can make a twist on that, because it's like sometimes those creatures aren't evil; they just want to survive. Like
no, he was a good. He thought we were going to kill him.
Yeah,
and like I was friends with him, so I had a pre-existing relationship with the guy.
That's cool.
As in, I was a deckhand for him, and I was like, no, he's a good guy. He always pays me on time. And being a goblin, I've been discriminated against a lot.
Yeah.
So, because people like goblins don't act like you do, and I'm like, no, it's okay. We're cool. We're cool. And it's been interesting, like playing that dynamic and like trying to. No, he's a good guy because he takes care of me.
Yeah.
But then one of our guys robs a shopkeeper for being mean to me, and I'm like, you can't steal from people. That's not nice.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I can. He treated you like shit. And I'm like, okay. Don't do it again, please. You know?
Right. Dang it. Yeah, you're right. You got a point. That's awesome.
So we're an hour in.
Okay.
In closing, do you have anything that you want to hit these fine folks with?
Yeah, I kind of gave you a little preview of it. I stream on Twitch under the Short Nord, shortnord.com or twitch.tv/the Short Nord. Play a lot of variety games. I'm going through Dragon Age Origins for the first time.
Nice.
Haven't played that yet. So that's been fun. I do horror games on Wednesdays with a heart monitor, which is an absolute blast. I'm playing Outlast 2 at the moment, which is horrifying. And then Mondays and Fridays, we have the Swole Initiative Network on Twitch, which is our D&D stuff. If you follow any D&D like TikTok shorts, reels, you probably see a guy named Swole Initiative. He's a big burly man. He runs a show on Friday. We're in a campaign together on Mondays, which is actually I know it's Monday right now for me, probably not for you out there right now, but every Monday
it's Friday for them.
Yeah, it's Friday for them. So so tonight, if you're seeing this on Friday, we have Fables of Gallia at 8 p.m. Central Time, and then Mondays at 8 p.m. Central Time we have Legend of Shalgal, which I play in. And
beautiful,
a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm a Warforged cleric. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
Lovely. Well, thank you for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you. This has been great.
Absolutely. You guys stay geeky.